Yeah. Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Let's get it. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam. John on the mic, very flat too. Keep you updated, that's what we do. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam.
Yo, what to do, everybody? It's your boy, John Altidor with Pro Fan Sports Podcast, back at you with another one of my boys, Vlad. Barry couldn't make it today. Barry feel better, but today we got Carlin, who covers the Philadelphia 76ers as editor of Sixers Wire for the USA Today. Well, man, how you doing? How's everything going with you?
I'm good, guys. 4 games into this series with the Boston Celtics, and then getting ready to board another flight to Boston on Tuesday morning. So just relaxing at the moment.
You're doing good. We're not.
Why is that?
We're not supposed to be 2-2 right now. We're supposed to be at least 3-0, but at least 2-1. But it really should be 3-0. But
you mean 3-1?
No, 3-0. At least 2-1.
We
sorry,
had 4 games.
Sorry. You're right. Already sweep you guys or 3-1?
I will say I picked Boston in 6 to begin the series, so the fact that it's 2-2 is not the biggest surprise. I will say I think the Celtics, they kind of have this weird tendency of just like messing around for like no reason. I think we saw it all season. I think we saw it in their round 1 series with the Atlanta Hawks. They should have won that series in 5. Instead, obviously, Trae Young walks Jaylen Brown down and hits that 3. And then even in this series, I thought they should have won game 1, even though James Harden went nuclear. And then even in game 4, they had a 5-point lead with 2 minutes left after rallying. They blew it. And then they had a lead in overtime. They also blew it. They just kind of have this weird tendency of just kind of messing around. But I've noticed the Celtics always bounce back whenever they take a loss. They haven't lost 2 straight yet in these playoffs, and I think that's going to continue. Like I think Boston finishes this thing out Tuesday and probably Thursday.
That's huge. I mean, it's taking you guys overtime and last second shots to actually take down the Boston Celtics. Yesterday's game 4. I thought it was y'all's for the taking, and then we came back. But obviously we lost the game, with some of our defensive lapses and maybe lack of calling timeouts. But what do you think of, the 76ers performance so far? Embiid missed game 1, and you guys took that one, and he's came back since, won the MVP, and he's been playing pretty well.
I'm not surprised by how Joel has played. I mean, this is what he's been doing all year. I mean, he led the league in scoring for a second straight year. He's kind of proven in the past that he will battle through certain injuries. I mean, I think last year he had to play through the facial fracture, that ligament in his thumb, and he still played against Miami. 2 years ago, he had a torn meniscus in his knee, suffered in round 1 with Washington, and still played against Atlanta through it. So he's proven in the past that he will battle through injuries in order to play, but obviously that limits his effectiveness. But no, I mean, he's obviously one of the best players in the league today, regardless of position. And I mean, the guy just is a dominant big man. I will say I'm more surprised by how Harden has played. Harden hadn't scored 40 points at all in the Sixer uniform before this series, and he scores 45 in game 1. He had the awful game 2, the awful game 3, another 42 points in game 4. Just like really terrific performances from him, combined with like really below average. You should think about retirement like performances. It was just very strange to just kind of see that him go on 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. I will say, I think though the series again is kind of turning out the way I thought it would. I mean, this is a 2-2 series. It goes back to Boston. where the Celtics have been very, very good all year at the TD Garden. They've proven they can also win on the road as well. So just I still think the Celtics finish this out. The Sixers continue to make the same mistakes that we have seen over the past 6 years or so during the Joel Embiid era. They kind of just they lose there's like a lapse of just mental focus, like that there are just certain things when it comes to the Sixers that just will hold them back. And I think we've seen that so far through these first 4 games. They continue to make the same mistakes over and over again.
Do you think that has to do with Embiid and how everybody plays when he is on the court versus when he's not on the court?
I don't think it's that. It's just like the guys. There's always a mental just lapse, and I feel like Doc Rivers kind of mentioned it the other day. Sixers haven't been through these wars. The Celtics have. So the Celtics, for example, like you can throw any type of playoff battle, playoff challenge at the Boston Celtics, and they've already seen it. Even just dating back to 2018, having a 3-2 lead on LeBron and the Cavs in the conference finals, they ended up blowing that, right? That tested them though. That gets them ready for future battles. 2019, they had to slip up during the Kyrie Irving year when they fell to Milwaukee in round 2. 2020 to get to the conference finals. Again, they come up short. 2021, that was a tough year. It was a weird year off the bubble and everything. And then 2022, last year, they make the NBA Finals. So they've been able to break through and get through almost every playoff battle imaginable. Anything you could throw at them, they've seen it. They've already seen it. They've gone through the frustrations. They can go through with it. You look at Philadelphia, they haven't been able to do that. They have yet to really overcome a playoff challenge. Like Joel, this team hasn't gone past round 2. They've fallen in round 2 for the past 5 seasons. And then at the 5th season that they didn't make the round 2, they dropped to the Celtics in the bubble and got swept out of round 1. So they haven't been able to experience and be able to overcome these playoff battles and challenges that the Celtics have. And it's why, like, just logic and based on the experience that both teams have, is why Boston is likely to come out on top in this series. Like, I'm not sure why people are kind of like worried that the Celtics are going to blow this thing, because they've already seen this before. They also know each other like the back of their hands. Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford. They know each other at the back of their hands. So that plays a big, big factor in playoff series.
I also think it goes back to what you said earlier about the Celtics always playing around and not playing to their full potential and sort of playing to the team that they're facing. Sometimes they just don't show up as they're supposed to. I think that's our worry here in Boston.
It is, but when they're challenged, they have shown that they will rise to it, right? Like even the Atlanta series, like everybody was like, "Oh, the Hawks could win Game 6 and force a Game 7," and I remember just looking at everybody and I was like, "Yo, like relax, they're going to go into Atlanta and beat them," which they did because they got challenged. The minute you challenge them, as I mentioned, you go back and look at what this team has had to go through, and they've been able to overcome pretty much every challenge that's been thrown at them, like in these playoffs. Just because of everything they've gone through in the past, they can take that and pretty much like apply it to any situation that they are currently in. So in this situation, it's a 2-2 series. It goes back to the TD Garden. I fully expect it to be a close game. Like the Sixers aren't just going to lie down, because this is probably their best chance to make the finals and get to their goal during the Joel Embiid era. This is probably their best shot. So they are going to fight like hell in Game 5, but I expect Boston to come out on top. They've been through too much. They got the experience, the moxie, everything that they've been through. I can't see Boston losing.
Let's talk a little bit about the coaches in the series. Joe Mazzulla yesterday, I think in Boston right now, he's getting crucified for not calling a timeout, and setting up the guys both in overtime. And Doc Rivers, he used to coach the Boston Celtics, but he's now the Sixers coach, and there were talks about him getting fired and him not being able to motivate those guys and get them to get them deeper in the playoffs. What are your thoughts on the coaches and their styles and their potential and them facing each other?
Well, I feel like Joe Mazzulla has done a really great job considering the pressure that he's under. A lot of people got to understand he took over for obviously Ime Udoka and everything that happened with Udoka, towards the end there. Good for him that he landed in Houston because I think he's a very great coach. It's just unfortunate what happened. But Mazzulla, I feel like Mazzulla is great. It just he's also a rookie head coach taking over a Celtic team that has, the expectation is to get to the NBA Finals as a rookie head coach, and I feel like a lot of people need to kind of understand that mistakes are going to be made. He's never been in these situations before, so he's doing this on the fly. So I feel like when Mazzulla makes these mental mistakes, because let's be real, he should have called a timeout yesterday. He should have, and I'm sure he knows that. And I'm sure the biggest thing with him now is to pretty much learn from the mistakes, kind of like with how I was just mentioning with the Celtics, how they went through those mistakes in the past and how they weren't able to overcome that, and then now they're able to make the finals last year, and they're still my pick to make the finals again this year. So I feel like Mazzulla is doing a great job. As far as Doc Rivers is concerned, yeah, let's be real. If they lose this series, Doc's out. It is what it is. There have been rumblings about his job security but really for ever since Daryl Morey took over, and really ever since James Harden was acquired here. And I think even former Sixers guard JJ Redick mentioned it on ESPN's First Take that if they lose in round two, there's going to be major, major changes to this Sixers roster and Sixers franchise throughout the summer, leading into next year. So yeah, I mean, if the Sixers don't get past this round, you got to think Doc is fired. I'd be shocked if he isn't. That's just the way it goes, and it's not necessarily a what's the word I'm kind of searching for? Not necessarily a judgment on Rivers' coaching. It's just unfortunately when you lose in the semifinals 3 years in a row with one of the best players in the league in Joel Embiid and a future Hall of Famer in James Harden for 2 of those 3 years, unfortunately, change has got to happen.
And do you agree with that?
I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where it's just so I'm looking at it. I'm not a fan of the Sixers. I'm not I didn't grow up a Sixers fan. I'm not from Philly. I'm actually from Detroit originally. So I didn't grow up a Sixers fan. This is a job. So I look at it from a media member's perspective, and I kind of look at it from a different kind of lens and say you talk to a Sixers fan on the street. Mm-hmm. The city here wants him fired. The fans want him gone. Mm-hmm. But from my perspective, when you look at the job that he's had to take over, he led them to the number 1 seed in 2021 for the first time since the Allen Iverson era. Just unfortunately, Ben Simmons didn't go up for a dunk in Game 7. Then in 2021-22, last year, he has to deal with the Ben Simmons nonsense leading up to the trade deadline. You're missing an all-star player, and you're running second-year guard Tyrese Maxey at point guard, who probably wasn't ready to play point guard just yet. He's more of a scoring guard. He's not going to set guys up. It's not what Tyrese Maxey does. And he had to deal with all of that. Then you had to bring James Harden in. He essentially had 2 different teams in 2021-22. They get past Toronto, who is a tougher opponent than I think people give them credit for. Toronto they're just you don't want to play them in the playoffs. And then they fell to the Miami Heat, who a lot of people forget the Heat were the number 1 seed last year. A lot of people seem to forget that. I know they got 7 undrafted players on that roster, but they were the number 1 seed, and they fell to that team. This year, he's had a full season of James Harden. They won 54 games, which I think is the most since the Allen Iverson era. And they were the 3 seed behind 2 very great teams in the Eastern Conference, obviously Boston and the Milwaukee Bucks. I think Doc has done a great job. Just unfortunately, when you don't win in the playoffs, changes have to be made, especially when you have the expectations that the 76ers have. This team wants a title. And if you can't deliver that title, they'll find somebody who can.
Yeah, makes sense.
Absolutely. An intriguing player on the 76ers is PJ Tucker. what does PJ Tucker do for the 76ers, that he keeps starting? It seems like he's not doing much as far as like scoring and stuff like that, but what are we not seeing?
Ask the Miami Heat last year, or actually ask the Miami Heat this year how much they miss PJ Tucker. For example, when the Heat were here in Philly, I went to go talk to Tyler Hero. I wanted to get some of the Heat perspective on Tucker. Tyler Hero had a quote. He said, "Look at our record this year without him." It's kind of simple. They were the number 1 seed last year with him. This year they were an 8 seed. Granted, Jimmy Butler turns it to Michael Jordan come playoff time, so like the Heat have been winning games, but they miss him. They miss him, and Tucker, like if you thought PJ Tucker was going to come to Philadelphia and score 10 to 15 points a game, you have been paying attention to PJ Tucker's career. That's never been PJ Tucker. Even if you look at his 2021 playoffs, when the Milwaukee Bucks won the championship, Tucker averaged, I think, like 2 points during that playoff run. 2. But if you talk to anybody on the Bucks, they will tell you that he was the most important player on that team outside of Giannis. Like Tucker, he does the little things that don't show up in box scores. I'm sure you guys saw the viral Twitter video of Tucker screaming at Paul Reed in Game 1. And he does that all the time. PJ is always on Paul Reed, telling him to pretty much has pretty much changed Paul Reed's trajectory, because before this year, Paul Reed was probably on the verge of leaving Philadelphia and not being on the team anymore, because they would have traded him for somebody who was able to help. Even Tucker yesterday, getting in the face of Joel Embiid in the fourth quarter in Game 4, close game, essentially the season's on the line. If Boston wins yesterday, and they go up 3-1, then it's a wrap. Celtics finish it off Tuesday. Let's go into the summer. But Tucker had to get in Joel's face and be like, "Hey, you're the MVP. You need to be better. Pick it up. Let's go." That's what PJ Tucker brings. That's stuff you don't see in the box score.
Absolutely. He's like a Marcus Smart, except he doesn't.
Exactly. That's actually an excellent point. We literally have, it's literally the Spider-Man meme of them pointing at each other. Like, that's Marcus Smart and PJ Tucker, except obviously Smart scores more, obviously, and Smart takes more shots. But in terms of like what they bring in terms of leadership and hustle and just that intensity, like that's what PJ and Marcus bring to their respective teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Another player I'm curious about is Tobias Harris. He's had a good year, and I feel like he's a player he stays consistent, but I feel like he's in the big games, he's not really a big factor. I don't know if that's because, he's a third, fourth option on the team, but, what are your thoughts on Tobias Harris and how he's done this series? And, are we looking at a situation where he might not be on the team, in the next couple of years?
Tobias Harris has the unfortunate life of being paid max contract money while being the number 4 option. And that's really unfortunate for him, because you're not going to find a better number 4 option in this league than Tobias Harris. The thing with him is, in order to get him going, the ball needs to be moved. The ball needs to jump around. He needs to take more catch and shoot 3-pointers. He needs to he's got to be involved on the offensive end. He's not a guy who's going to go out and get his offense like, say, a James Harden, a Joel Embiid, a Tyrese Maxey. So in order to get him involved, the ball has to be hopping around as it was in Game 1. I think Harris had 18 points in the Game 1 win, and obviously his numbers haven't been great since. He got into foul trouble in Game 3, but Game 4 he was better defensively. The thing with him is just like, if the ball's not moving, you're not going to see much of Tobias Harris. Like, the ball just really has to jump around. But I mean, he's another one. He plays really good defense. He attacks the glass, and it is what it is. But his contract expires next year, so he'll have one more year left on this deal, which he's a prime candidate to be moved this summer because of it.
What?
I don't know. I didn't have any more questions right now. Yeah, no, I don't have any questions right now.
So Tuesday, what is that? Game 5? You know,
Yes.
what are you seeing as far as the game unfolding? What are the 76ers got to do? You know, because the playoffs is about adjustments, right? What do the 76ers got to do, you know, to make sure that if they are leading, they can close it out without an issue this time around?
I don't think they can. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. They just continue to make these same mistakes, and maybe this is the time. Maybe this is the year they finally learn from mistakes that the Celtics had to in the past. How the Celtics were able to go through those wars and move forward. Maybe this is the year. I personally don't see it, because the Celtics do such a great job on Tyrese Maxey too. Like that's like as Maxey struggled mightily against them during the regular season, and he's been struggling again in this series. I think even in Game 4, he shot 6 for 17 to get his 16 points, 14 points, whatever it was. I mean, he's struggling too. So for me, it's just like I feel like again the game's going to be close, and it's going to come down to who plays smarter basketball down the stretch in the fourth quarter. Which at this point, the Celtics have shown that they can do that on a more consistent basis than Philadelphia can. So again, if you're going to ask me who wins, again, I'm taking Boston. Um, but you know, it'll be close. But the Celtics should get the job done.
Who do you see coming out the West?
Phoenix. Phoenix.
Phoenix. Really?
I've been on Phoenix ever since the Kevin Durant trade. I would love to see Denver. I really would, but I treat Denver like I treat Philadelphia. Just they're a really good regular season team. They got an elite big man. They got a good playmaking, high scoring guard in Jamal Murray. Contavious Caldwell Pope brings a lot of good championship experience. Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. They're good players, but they just say they're another one. They always seem to make the same mistakes in the playoffs. It like happens every year. And then when you look at what Devin Booker is doing for Phoenix, my God. So between Booker, KD, Chris Paul coming back hopefully by Game 6 for them, I do like Phoenix. I know everybody's looking at the Warriors and the Lakers. Warriors got championship DNA. The Lakers have LeBron, but yeah, give me Phoenix, man. I really like that Suns team a lot.
It's a Celtics Suns final.
Yeah, that would be my prediction for sure.
And what do you got winning it all?
I think I would have to say Boston, just for the simple fact that, I mean, that goes back to my whole thing about the playoff wars. They made the finals last year. They experienced it. They know what it takes to get there. They knew that they saw what the Warriors did in order to win a championship like that. And excuse me, from their perspective, they just have to take the lessons that they learned from last year's failure and use them in this situation and come out on top. It's and I think they have the talent to do it.
Let's hope so. I believe they have the talent. I just don't know if they have the consistency sometimes. I hate the fact that they have to be challenged sometimes to respond. I think great teams just go out and kill. And that's what I'd like them to do sometimes.
I hear that, and I totally understand that. But I mean, you also got to battle human nature too. So I mean, yeah. you got to battle through that as well. So listen, I feel like the Celtics are going to be fine. You know, good series. Sixers are a good team. Like it's not like there's some scrub team. The Sixers will make the little mistakes that Boston won't in this series, and that's going to decide it.
All right.
Yeah, I'm glad you have that, you know, mindset there because we're all freaking out here, man. You know, we're living and dying with the team, man. But I agree, we have not lost, other than the finals, we have not lost back-to-back games in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens with that. And I think my last question is a personal one. You know, with you covering the team, you know, you're traveling back and forth to cover the games. You know, what's it been like for you to be able to do something like that and travel and write about sports, you know, I'm sure you love doing this, you know, or else you wouldn't be doing it.
Well, this is my 6th year doing it. It's a blessing every single day. As somebody I have been homeless a couple of times in my life, just from just unfortunate things happening to us. I mean, we got hit by Hurricane Sandy back in 2012. That took our whole house and 3 cars and just everything. We literally had like nothing, and we had to like rebuild. I was a freshman in college. Like it was just insane. And then before that, when we lived in Michigan, we had my dad left us, and so it was just like unfortunately, just a lot of things was kind of didn't work out in our favor. So a lot of it is just like the fact that I'm here is kind of I kind of resonated with what Joel said during his MVP thing the other day. Improbable doesn't mean impossible, and it's just like just because something like may seem improbable and may not be realistic per se, it doesn't mean it's impossible. And the fact that I'm able to do this is a blessing on a daily basis. I thank God for it every day, and I'm just happy and thankful to be in the position I'm in. Like it's awesome.
Thank you for sharing all that.
Absolutely, man. Well, I mean, I guess to follow up to that, my last question, what advice would you give to somebody that's trying to do, exactly what you're doing now, but hasn't found an opportunity yet?
To never give up, and to also understand that sacrifices are going to have to be made. I can't tell you how many college parties I missed when I was in college because I was busy with reading up on things, or I was broadcasting a game and a game went out late, or just doing stuff in college, working at the college radio station, and just being unfortunately having to miss big events and things like that. But it all pays off in the end, because the more, I always tell people all the time, what you get out is what you put in. So if you are going to put in the grind, the hours, the work, then you are going to get the rewards that come out of it. And I have been reaping the rewards of the work ever since. And I feel like that's kind of like the biggest thing to tell people.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Well, Kai, thank you for coming on Pro Fan Sports Podcast, man. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully you can come back in the future if you're still doing the same things. And I'm sure the Celtics and 76ers are going to be meeting up again. We'll see how long this series goes, but it's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kai.
Thanks, guys.
All right, have a good night.
Yes, sir. So that was Kai Carlin. He covers the 76ers as editors of Sixers Wire for USA Today, man. So that ended pretty inspirational. So shout outs to him and all the thoughts that he was able to give us on the show today. Make sure you're following him. His if you're a 76ers fan, his handle is at Kai_Carlin. Carlin is CARILIN. Make sure you're following us as well. We're at Pro Fan Sports on everything except for Instagram, and that's at ProFans_sports. We drop content every day. We drop an episode weekly. Make sure you liking and subscribing. That's the best way you can support us. Until next time.